Hello everyone, and welcome to eLearnChat, where talk, it's knowledge. Co-hosting the show today is Lesley Price, the Queen of eLearning in the UK. How are you doing, Lesley?
I'm very good, thank you, Harold. Very good. It's very hot here in the UK, even at this time of the evening.
Well, we've got a returning superstar on here on eLearnChat, so let's run our intro and we'll introduce him. Joining us today, it's John Blackmon.
Hi there. How you doing? And Lesley, I'm really happy to hear you're a queen. I didn't know.
Oh, this is just you've just got to cope with Harold and Rick. Rick calls me the Emma Peel of learning.
All right.
Within the e-learning community in the UK, one of my nicknames is not so much the Queen of e-learning, but the Queen of networking, because I know an awful lot of people. Like, even though you and I have never actually met in real life, we've met virtually before. So, but when you've been around as long as I have, hey ho, that's what happens.
You become the queen.
Well, it's old age.
Fantastic.
Longevity, John.
All right.
I operated my first computer in 1974.
Ooh, all right. That's a bit before me, but I really not a whole lot. I started with punch cards, so.
So did I.
I was doing I had to punch cards and submit them via batch overnight to find out how the program ran. So it's an interesting way to do it compared to today.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah.
And what we're going to be talking about with you today is, my goodness, worlds apart.
Literally. Absolutely.
How things have changed. Even in our lifetime, even in the last, 5 years. We would probably never have imagined what is being done.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've been in e-learning for quite some time, but imagine, thinking that we'd be talking about a VR authoring product for the average person to go create their own virtual reality. Right? No way. You wouldn't have imagined that happening, but here we are.
Yeah. So tell us a bit more about it, John. What's been happening to you since we last met you?
So I think last time we talked, we had not released the product yet, but we were talking about a release date. We didn't actually even, I don't believe, have a date at that point. But the product is out. It is available. It is being received very well. It's being used in a lot of areas. We've got it used at a couple of different universities now. There's actually a class being taught using CenarioVR right now as we speak. It's pretty amazing. It's within 3 weeks after release, they're teaching a class in it. I found that hard to believe. But yeah, a lot of things going on. So it's a pretty exciting time.
So where do you see VR going? Because I as you know, I attend various conferences and events, and there's a lot of talk about VR and AI. I know that I appreciate they're different. A lot of our community don't actually understand the difference, but they are different. But there's a lot of talk about it, and particularly in VR, I'm now beginning to see more organizations seeing the potential for using VR in vocational skills, vocational training. Is that something that you're seeing as well in the US?
No, absolutely. That's a lot of it. The thing that I didn't actually anticipate, but I'm seeing more of is I kind of anticipated vocational type training and thought you would see that. Well, I didn't see it, but now I'm seeing a lot of uptake is in interpersonal relations. So what you're finding is when somebody is, when you're having to deal with an employee or deal with a customer one-on-one and talk to them, when they get in your face and they're yelling at you, you react differently to things, and you answer things differently, and you do things differently, and you can't really simulate that inside a regular course. But now you're having this, you can actually have scenes where, depending on what you answer, you can have that person come back at you and be right in your face, and when they're in your face in VR, they're in your face. So it's pretty. It gives you that same thing, and then through our tool, we're able to measure your reaction time, how long it took you to react. We'll know if if part of this is the customer is yelling at you, and you have to answer a question at the same time this guy's yelling at you, which means you have to handle that and answer this question. We'll determine how much time it took you, so you can actually track that kind of thing while you're doing it. So there's a lot to it. A lot of things, areas where you wouldn't have expected it to go, that it's gone.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you're talking there about you're talking there about the rage, that obviously isn't a particularly positive thing, in any kind of environment. However, I'm a great believer, and I was always taught when I was at school and by my parents, that you learn so much from the mistakes that you make. And one of the great things I think VR can offer is the ability to go through a situation and think, oh, shouldn't have done that. Can I do it again, please?
The term we use is mistakes made in virtual reality are not mistakes made in reality.
Yeah. There's a saying, and I'm obviously Scottish, and in England they talk about when you do something wrong, adults will say that'll teach you, and in Scotland the expression is that'll learn you.
That'll learn you.
And I think that's actually a very good. I think that is actually a very good expression.
Yeah.
So how in that how are people learning then from not the mistakes but just the way it can be used and the freedom to be allowed to make these choices?
Right, and again, that's another the beauty of it. You learn in VR, even though you're actually it's virtual, it's not real, you're not doing it, but you can consider it learning by doing, because your brain actually recognizes it as doing. The best example of this is driving a car. So when you drive someplace, you get in your car and you drive over to it. When you do it, you remember how to get there. You go, oh yeah, I know how to get there. If you're in the passenger seat, you have no idea how to get there. You probably you could have been there 3 or 4 times. You still don't know how to get there because you were watching it. Your brain actually stores it in a different area when you do versus when you watch. And so that is the beauty of virtual reality, is your brain thinks you're doing it. That's also why some people can get nauseous if there's a lot of movement, because your brain says, hey, I'm doing it and I'm not moving. Wait a minute, what's going on here? So your retention is better. Your ability to do it again is better. Any kind of thing you've learned there sticks with you. It's like you did it. So it's a much better medium for training in things that are physical and spatial.
So what kind of organizations, what kind of courses or organizations are particularly interested in this, John? I think the potential's tremendous.
Yeah, all over the place. One of the first projects we had done was a food safety inspection. So they've just they prototyped it. It's being used on the floor right now. And they're going to go through and do a second pass at it. But the food safety inspectors have to go through a plant floor, and they have to. Their job is to continually look for things that are wrong. Well, in previous training, they had images, and they would have some videos and things like that. Now they actually walk them through the plant. There are violations that are there. They have to find them. They have to walk through the entire plant. They have to find their way around the plant. And they have to walk around the entire plant, and they have to find all the safety inspections, and they have to do it in a certain amount of time as well. So certainly something you can imagine. That's a much better training for them to use in that way. But then we even have tourism industries. So we have a company which I can't really speak about the name of, but they're looking at it right now for all their they do tours, manage tours. So some of their employees haven't been to all of these places, so they're going to create virtual tours for all their employees to learn those areas, so they can speak about them knowledgeably to the people that they're trying to sell tour packages to.
Yeah, No, it sounds good. I don't know if you're aware, but I actually judge. I'm a judge on the Learning Technology Awards in the UK.
Oh, I didn't know that.
One of the categories that I judge is VR and simulation.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
So,
all right.
It's quite interesting when you look and see, because obviously when it's awards, you're actually seeing the new things that are coming on board. And, you know, it was a couple of years ago now, but one of the new things was the historic palaces in London using VR. Well, you know, it was it was in the early stages, but using it with some of the young children who were going round the historic palaces, and they were bringing the exhibits to life, so that the children weren't just looking at statues or paintings.
Right, and they could actually see them and perhaps interact with something in there and do something they wouldn't normally get to do.
Yeah. So that might be something that, you know, there may be an interest in the States as well.
Absolutely. I've been trying to push for a lot. I mean, there doesn't really seem to be any category that defines it, because it can fit just about every category. One of the things that I've would like to do with it is start going from city to city in our area and have them do virtual tours of their city using the tool, and keep it in the public area, so you can actually create virtual tours of every area that you want to go to. And so it's a way for these cities to advertise themselves, to you know, show what they have.
Yeah. So where do you see I mean, it's a different skill that it takes to actually develop courses like this.
It's the developing of the course. We've taken it down, I think, to the level of PowerPoint. It's really very simple to actually develop it. The skill is in the filming and the layout and design. It is I mean, there should be a completely new course in design of 360 filming and designing 360 courses, because you want to have an immersive layout that actually, you know, walks a person through it. And so it's a different way to look at courses than previously looking at courses. So instructional design has taken on a whole new meaning in the world of 360.
Yeah,
so do you think that'll mean that different people will get involved?
Maybe. It's also retraining. I mean, some of the things still apply. Many other things still apply, but it's just a new skill set.
Yeah.
Just even filming in 360 is a new skill set. I just got done writing a white paper on, you know, tips and tricks on filming in 360, because everyone has that. You know, they go out and they buy the camera, and then they all have the same questions about how to use it and what to do. So I wrote up a big paper on, you know, the best practices for you know, filming in 360.
Yeah, and, really interesting stuff.
In some of the tests we've done we haven't done a whole lot yet with Scenario. I think the version we used might have been an older one. It was before the actual release. But what we were noticing is it's definitely a different, like, you have to figure out how to position the camera so that you're going to get a good view of all of the things that you're going to need to interact with. So it's a lot different from just, you know, pointing and framing things. It's not so much. It's almost like we needed a different word that's sort of like framing, but for 360, because it's
sphering. Let's make it up right here. We're going to call it sphering.
Yeah,
because you're creating a sphere.
We've got a new word, John. Oh, lovely.
We've made up a word today. It was a group effort.
We've made up a word today. Yeah, sphering. Absolutely. We're very good at that in learning.
We get to do these things. We're making it up.
Yeah, you make it up as you go along. It's a scenario.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, and so, but you bring up a good point, right? So you have to figure out, okay, placement of the camera is absolutely vital, right? So you know, you have to figure that out. But then also, what areas do you do close-ups on? And do you just do an image, or do you do a video? Image saves you a lot of room if you just do an image. So can you get by with an image and a voiceover, or do you need a video of that area? So, you know, where is the close-up? What angle? What do you want to be at your 0-0 on there? There's just so many different considerations to take into, you know, that you have to take into effect there.
And I would imagine as you're as you've got the different scenarios that you're building up, so the one that is has the fingers up is the right one to do, compared to made a big mistake here. So you've got two sets. You're doing double filming almost.
Yeah. Usually you are. I mean, you have to you film each area, and then you may have more than one. So let's say you're going to put a person to a branching condition, and he has 4 choices of things to do. What do I take, the red pill or the blue pill, right? Or the whatever it might be. But then you have to film the other side of all of those choices. So you may have had 5 different choices that he could have taken. You have to have outcomes for each of those, because you want him to experience the results of what he did. I mean, however bad it might be, you need him to experience those results.
So does that make it more expensive then to produce in terms of the whole design?
I don't know if it makes it more expensive. I think it's going to be for some time. It will take a little bit longer because people have to get used to the medium. You'll have to produce your first 1 or 2 before you go, oh, okay, I know what to do now. And then you'll be able to go through it. Like, we're all there, we're all comfortable in producing in the current medium we work in. This is a new medium for everyone. I mean, it's a brand new field. So I think it'll not necessarily more expensive, but I guess time is money, so perhaps it is more expensive. But it will take more time.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm talking about. It's the time. I mean, I remember, I started off lecturing in the days before PowerPoint even existed. So, you actually even wrote, when I first started lecturing, it was scary. You wrote on blackboards, not even whiteboards. So we wrote on blackboards with chalk. Then we went to whiteboards. Then we went to whiteboards. Then we went to the acetates that you put up on the projectors. And that was before PowerPoint existed. Right.
There was a time before PowerPoint.
This is an expansion of the learning process.
Yeah, it has come so far, and it's it's about time, really. Though, if you think about how long VR was the next big thing, it's been the next big thing for at least 5 years now. It's finally here. I believe we are now at the point where it's here.
Well, and I think one of the things that was a limiting factor before is just now people are getting more and more access to better bandwidth. Before having streaming 360-degree video like that would have just killed people's bandwidth most of the time. It's
true.
And I think that's common with other things in e-learning too. I mean, just using video in general, streaming video has been something that it definitely came later than people had kind of the idea and the desire for it, just because we needed to wait for bandwidth availability to be there.
Yeah, bandwidth and device capability as well. So definitely bandwidth, but if you think about it, 4 or 5 years ago, phones weren't able to handle that kind of thing, and there were no inexpensive VR devices. They were very expensive. I mean, we got you have devices like the Oculus Go now, which are just game changers. It's a $199 device that is just absolutely fun as heck to use, and does a good job of display and is completely standalone. So the game is changing quick too.
Don't get me started on bandwidth, because as you know, John, I work for a charity called LearnAppeal. And 4.4 billion people in the world don't have internet access. And one of the concerns I have with the charity, because of the charity I work for, is that as we move further and further ahead, those of us that have bandwidth, there is the potential to leave those who don't have access to the internet further and further behind. And that's why I do what I do, and I wouldn't want to hold anybody back, but I just bring it up now to raise it with people and just say, oh, by the way, not everybody will be able to take advantage of this.
Yeah, it's true, and it's unfortunate. But the solution is probably beyond the realm of this. There's a lot of things that would need to be done to get that there.
The other thing I was going to ask you, John, is that as well as Learn Appeal supporting those that don't have internet connectivity, one of the things that I was involved with last week was running career workshops with school children. So year 10 in the UK, they're about 15, 16. They're just at the age where they're choosing their subjects, what they're going to be studying, whether they stay on at school, go to university, or follow a vocational route. And we were talking to them about careers in our industry. So how did you get involved in e-learning? What brought you into the e-learning community?
And that is bringing a smile to my face. It kind of happened, I would say, by accident, really. We began. I was at IBM actually, and left to form my own company to do applications for OS2 at the time. That'll show you how, if you even know what OS2 is, that means that you're probably as old as I am. And we were doing that, but on the side we were doing work for a company called CollegeView, which was a college search engine, and that actually became more and more of our business. And we did quite a lot with the college search engine, and got really into the college search area. And while we were doing that, we kind of realized that, well, we were doing contracting with that. We had to figure out what we really wanted to do when we grew up, and because we had a lot of experience in creating these type of things for the schools. One of the things we were talking to the schools all the time. We realized that.
Sorry, can I just interrupt there? By schools, yes. Do you mean
universities?
State education schools, or do you mean university schools? Because it's different in the UK to US.
Good point. It is. We were working directly with universities, but we were the product was put at the high school level. So we were actually in 4,000 high schools in the United States, but it was all things about the colleges. So the content, the people we actually worked with and paid us was the colleges to be in there, and it was given to the high school level. But we worked so much with the schools, and right then e-learning was just starting to move away from the green screen. So this is quite some time ago, and just moving away from that. And we saw the need that people were using HTML for the first time to create courses, but they were writing it by hand. They were very rudimentary. There was no such thing as an authoring tool to create courses. And we were at that point where we saw, it's like, wait, this is really cool. So I actually literally took a month and sat in a room by myself and wrote what is now Lectora today. I mean, obviously it's a little earlier version of what is Lectora today, but it's the first version anyway. Came out with it, and I said, hey, what do you think of this? We can do this. And then we said, oh, that was it. That was the one. And I mean, since that day in 1998, we've been at it ever since.
So it was accident rather than design.
It really was. We were working on something completely different in the general college industry, and we just kind of saw it. I mean, there were courses coming out, and they were just terrible, and there was no way to create them. And we said, well, this is it. This is the one. This is what we're going to do.
Yeah, because the young people that we ran the workshops with, I did it with the company that we worked with, Appeteer, who developed the Learn Appeal capsule for us. And when we went we saw about 100 young people, about 25 in 4 workshops. And we said to them, do you know what e-learning is? And they just looked blankly, and then one or two kind of put up their hand and went, maybe. And then we said, well, it can be all kinds of things. It can be BuzzFeed, it can be stuff you see on YouTube, but it can also be courses. And then we said, and do you know how they're created? It's called e-learning design, instructional design, digital learning design. And their eyes just about popped out their heads because they had never heard of this type of career opportunity. So it was great because we then were able to show them courses. Oh, you would have loved it, John, because what we then did, we said to the group, each group, we said, okay, we're going to create a course. What are we going to create a course on? And the things they came up with was teaching your granny how to use Snapchat. or how you manage a football team in the World Cup.
All right. Since they were experts in that, I'm sure.
Yeah, but we were taking them through the different things that you then needed to do. So when we were talking about Snapchat, they said, oh, and you get out your phone. And Wes, the chap who I was working with, put up his hand and he said, oh, Granny's holding a phone. But it's an old Nokia with push buttons on it. Will that work? And they then said, oh no, it's got to be a smartphone, got to be a smartphone. And what we just think, what we're going to be doing a follow-up with the school, where we're going to be inviting applications, in inverted commas, from 4 to 6 of the students there, which we will accept, and we're then going to get the mentors to learn the skills of instructional design.
That's awesome.
So I just think it's. Have you ever heard of career days in, because we were talking about the different skills you're going to need and the skills you developed. Are people in the US considering that now when our industry is booming?
I don't know. I don't know if they're doing it at the high school level. I've never heard it at that level. Certainly there are degrees offered in that, masters in instructional design is offered at the university level, but I don't think I've ever heard it at the high school level.
Yeah, because you don't need, I think you'll agree, you don't need a degree to become a good instructional designer, digital learning designer, cameraman. All this 360 stuff is very, very practical that you're talking about.
Right.
And
right.
Speaking of
that,
that,
it's done on the job.
And speaking of that, you said you'd have some sort of demonstrations and stuff to show us what people can do with your CenarioVR.
Oh, I'd love to see that.
Can you show us some of that?
Absolutely. Let me
Awesome.
do that right now.
And I'll send the link to the students.
All right, yeah, they can all actually trial it and get on and they can create something here. They will need a 360 camera of some sort to do it.
I'll mention it to the school. Thank you.
Yeah, they definitely can all get on. So this is CenarioVR is SaaS-based, web-based. You don't have to download anything. You can run it from any of the popular browsers out there. Right here is a dashboard. We have our list of courses here. These are the scenarios. We call our courses scenarios. These are scenarios that we have that we're working on. This is one we created recently on office safety. We actually took a 360 camera, just went through the office and searched for safety violations in the office. That is actually not a very hard thing to find in most offices today. We found several. But it's actually an intelligent course. We just filmed each room, and we have video of each room, and then we have close-ups, and this is that spatial awareness thing we talked about. So because you have to put it in the right place in the room so that you can find the different areas of interest that they'd be looking at. So this is it's modeling on an inspector walking in and coming in, seeing a room, and it's okay. He has to know what to look at in that room. First thing he should always know is that fire extinguishers are the #1 safety violation in office spaces today. Most people don't have them inspected properly, kept up to date, maintained, those sort of things. So if he sees one, he's supposed to know to point that out and look at it and go to it. So we give them those hot spots. There's other things that we give a lot of things that are not actually errors. So if we go through and take it, I'll go through and actually that one's going to talk to me for about a few minutes. We have an introduction. So if I actually go through, this is our little preview mode area right here. If I go into preview mode, it actually starts with a small introduction. I have a voiceover that's actually talking to me right now, but it doesn't come through on the Skype because it's coming into my headset right now. But it goes through and gives you an introduction and tells you about office safety, allows you to look around a little bit while it's going on. And as you see, I don't have the option yet of picking any of those hotspots yet because they're going to show up after this gets done. So the nice thing is you can conditionally show things and conditionally branch to different areas depending upon what's going on. So when it's done reading the introduction and going through all the different things, you will actually see that it'll get rid of the textual that's going up there, and then it'll pop up the other icons that'll ask you the question. So now I can navigate around the office, I can walk around the office, or I can ask the questions that are going through. So in this case, I'll look at this. I know that I'm supposed to look at all the fire extinguishers in the office as a safety inspector. So this is where I've chosen to use an image. So I've gone through and selected an image. Now it's still a 360. I still can look around at the whole office that's there, but it's just an image. There's no need to go in. I had an audio overlay in here that read the question to me, and I was supposed to inspect this and look around and see what it is. So he's definitely missing a maintenance tag. And then I get some audio. The audio tells me what's going on, and then when the audio is done playing, it'll automatically go back. And then you'll see when I automatically go back that it then removes that link from that area, so I don't go back to that area and do it again. And we do that for each area in there. It conditionally knows that to remove them as you go, and I can show you how we do that in a minute. So you can actually put in game type logic where you can actually display things if you want to or not as you're going.
So how long do you take for these video clips? Like, how long are the video clips usually?
So you want to, VR is micro learning in action. You want it to be relatively short. So each clip, like these clips are all each about a minute long. They're set to loop. So, and again, this is another good part of staging. You'll learn to, we have people walking through and things going on. Most of it's real. I mean, this is what they were doing. I said, guys, just do what you normally do. Don't change anything. But I always had somebody walking around, and I made sure before that minute was done, they walk back to where they started, because when it's going to loop, they're going to walk back again, right? So
that way they don't
it's all
vanish.
It's all on a loop. That's one of your options on here, is to set a loop. So on the properties of a scene, you have one of your options is to loop the video. So in this case, this video does loop. So we have a loop set on each one. You don't have to do that. You can have it go one time and then just forward on. You can actually have a complete auto forwarding one that just gets to the end and moves to the next scene if you want. So let's take a quick look. Oh, go ahead.
Is this available, only available on the internet, or is it also available in an offline solution, for example?
So it is, when you create the actual authoring tool, is available only on the internet. But when you create the content, you can create it and download it, and you can publish it to a lot of different formats.
That's all I was interested in. So it can be, you don't have to be online all the time, that you're going through the VR course.
Right. When you publish, one of the things you can publish to is directly to HTML or these things. If you publish to our apps, we have apps for iOS and Android. Those apps actually download. You go into the app, it pushes it to the course, and it downloads all the content onto your phone, and you can actually take it in VR on your phone disconnected. So you're able to do that.
Yeah, because obviously if you're somewhere where there's, you wanted to do something and the internet is rubbish, this is the kind of thing that would actually be really useful doing if you're sitting on the train going to work, Right.
Is it possible to export a course to like a file that you could just put on external media or something like that?
Absolutely. Yes. Let me just show that real quick. So when you publish, the first publish option is to CenarioVR Live Mobile. That's when it gets hosted by CenarioVR. So it's kind of an LMS in itself as well. So it's an authoring tool, and it hosts and it distributes it via the apps. But all of the other options are downloadable options. So if you choose one of these SCORM options, you can actually put it. These create zip files that you can put on your LMS. HTML5, you could put it on a website. You could put it on a CD and give it to somebody, really, if you wanted to. So
brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
All downloadable options for you there.
Cool.
No, I'm just thinking if people, when very often when people are, this is the kind of thing they maybe would want to do if they're, on a train for, an hour and a half, an hour, going to a meeting or going somewhere, but you can never rely on the internet, even in our developed economies, when you're going through tunnels.
Yeah. You're very right, and it's not even just tunnels, just different areas. Let's face it, we've all been through that. I was just going to show a quick sample of how some of the logic, if you will, is done, just to get an idea. So everything's done via actions. So in this case, I have a scene, and there are actions that are done on show. Scenes have actions for when they come up and when the actions are done. Hotspots have actions for when you click on them. Questions have actions for everything you answer within a question. In all those instances, you can do any of the actions within CenarioVR. So in this case, when they come up, I'm going to show that sign, but I'm only going to show it. I have conditions on these actions. I'm going to only show it if these questions have been answered. And I have multiple actions. I'm going to show these other links, and remember, we answered a question, and once we answered it, went away. It's because we only show those links if that question has been answered, so the question that represents that link. So we have all these potential conditions, and it's a lot of things you can put there. You can also say if the question is correct or not, if it's been answered or not, or if it's been shown. So you can develop game-type logic with it.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah, and just to show you one other thing that I know wasn't around back when we talked last time, is the concept of analytics. So when you take all of these different scenarios, if you give them to private users, we collect XAPI analytics on the back end. So you can see how your users are doing, how they're scoring, if it's a scored scenario, or if it's not scored, how they're interacting, how much time they're spending. So in particular on that was the Corals of the Caribbean course. We can drill into that course. So you see we've gone from the summary into the Corals of the Caribbean. You can see who passed, who failed. You get a leaderboard, and the leaderboard is in two ways. You can look at just interactions and time spent to see who's actually using it more, or if you want to look at it by score, you can also look at it by score, interactions, and time spent and get that as well, and you can see who's on the scoring leaderboard. We also have an experience timeline, so you can see each day, how much they're using each day, so you can see if people are all using it in one day or what's going on. And then clicking on, you can see every single statement that was done on that as well. You also see that you get the device type that they're using it on, so you know how they're using it. Are they using it on the desktop, or are they using it on a phone, or and even what kind of phone?
It was funny when I was working with these students last week, and we showed them this type of analytics, and they said, "You mean our teachers are going to be able to know whether we're actually doing something or not, and how many seconds it even took us to answer the questions?" And we went, "Oh yes,
yes, every single detail." And so you know how many interactions were done, how many people interacted with a hotspot, every question, who answered what question, what they did, and then what time it took them to answer it. All that information is in there. So yes, you get all that good stuff, and then actually a full interaction log. And the beauty is you can actually even delve in even farther. So you can actually delve into a student. So I can go right into a student and see how this particular student, you get where he is in relation to the other students. So you get that student's on there on that particular course. And then if you want to look at that student across all courses, you can actually even delve into the student across all courses. So here's how student 3 did. Here's how many different things he's launched. Here's how many interactions he's done with each of those. Here's how many scores he's had with each of those as well, where he is on the leaderboard versus all of the other students as a whole, as an aggregate. Every day that student has been there, what he did every day, and this is his interaction log across all time as well.
No more porky pies from students then.
Porky pies? What's a porky pie?
Well, porky pie is a lie. In the UK, they talk about a porky pie as being a lie. So no more porkies.
That's right. That's right. You will definitely know exactly what they did.
John, do the students have access to how they've done, as opposed to just the admin?
No, this is all done within the, this is just for the admin or the author themselves. Now, you can, within the course itself, you can tell the student how they've done. So we quite commonly have that. And I believe in this Corals course, we actually do have that. At the end of the course, you can tell them their score. And then you can remediate that. You can do all kinds of things. So at the end of, on the last scene within this course, if I scroll down just slightly, in the final scene, I actually have 2 different text blocks that come up, and they're conditional. They show conditionally depending upon the score you've got. So the one comes up if you scored 100, and the other comes up if you have scored less than 100, and we actually show them their score. So one of the things you can do in here is just by using this keyword %score%, it'll substitute the actual score in there, so you can tell them how they did. So you give them immediate feedback on how they did and let them know their score.
Yeah, because I think that's quite important with learning. That you know, that when, particularly if you're, I suppose it applies across all learning, whether it be in the workplace or in high schools or colleges or universities, as we call them here. I think it's important that people do get feedback. Oh yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And especially in VR, because you feel like you've just done it. You need to know how you did right then. So I'm a big proponent of telling them how they did at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, and make it tailored. Don't just, if they got a perfect score, let them know they got a perfect score. Don't just say you got 100. Hey, give them some other credit. Maybe how a starburst sound go across, or a fireworks picture. There's nothing you can't do going in here. So you can certainly show them any kind of thing if let them know that they did really well.
Brilliant. I think we're about running out of time, aren't we, Harold?
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the clock. I'm definitely going to try this out, John. I love it.
All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's very cool.
No, it really does look absolutely amazing. And I say, if you don't mind, I will, when we have further meetings with the high school, I will let the students who are interested in instructional design and e-learning know that this kind of thing is now available, because that might even appeal to them even more.
Oh yeah, when they get into their careers, and this will be a mainstream technology by the time they get into their careers, and they'll be able to use this. They will be on the leading edge of it by getting in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe ease them into all the analytics stuff if what you were telling them before already scared them.
Yeah, that's true.
We did that with them last week. We showed them, and Wes just said, "Sorry guys, you've been too long. You've blocked yourselves out."
All right. Well, thank you for coming on again, John, and it's been great to see how Scenario VR has been sort of developing and evolving, and what you've added since last time.
Oh, it's fantastic. It really does look pretty amazing, and I am most certainly going to be having a look at it. Excellent. Maybe you can come to one of the UK conferences and tell us all about it.
I go to Learning Technologies every year, and I present. I presented Scenario VR at it this year.
Yeah, brilliant.
So absolutely,
I think I'll be there
again next year.
All
right. Well, thanks for having me on, guys.
All right. Well, thank you again for
Thanks then,
coming
John.
on,
Take care. Bye.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Bye.